You think poverty is random, bad luck, wrong circumstances, unfortunate timing. But here's the truth they'll never tell you in school, on the news, or in polite conversation. Your financial struggle isn't an accident. It's engineered. There's a system designed to keep you exactly where you are. And that system doesn't work through force or chains. It works through psychology, through beliefs planted in your mind before you could question them, through behaviors normalized as responsible that keep you trapped, through an entire architecture of conditioning that makes you complicit in your own poverty. This video will expose the psychological design behind financial control, and more importantly, how to dismantle it. Because you're not poor by accident, you're poor by design. And the moment you see the design, you can break it.
You're watching this because something inside you already knows. You've felt it. The invisible ceiling. The patterns that don't make sense. The advice that keeps you safe but never makes you wealthy. Most people will spend their entire lives blaming circumstances, the economy, their parents, their education, anything except the psychological prison they've been conditioned to build for themselves. But you're different. You're the type who questions, who notices patterns, who refuses to accept that the way things are is the way they have to be. What you're about to learn isn't taught in business school. It's not discussed in financial literacy courses. It's not something your parents, your teachers, or your mentors will ever explain to you. This is the hidden architecture of wealth extraction, the psychological mechanisms that keep the majority poor while a minority accumulates everything. And you're about to see exactly how it works, not so you can complain about it, but so you can escape it. Drop one limiting belief about money you were taught as a child that you're now unlearning. One belief. No explanation. Let's see what we were all programmed with. Design Mechanism 1. The Wage Cage. Here's the first mechanism of control. You've been trained to trade time for money. From childhood, the message is clear. Get good grades, get a good job, work hard, climb the ladder. And what's a job? It's trading your hours, your life, for a fixed payment controlled by someone else. This isn't opportunity. This, a cage. Because the moment you accept that wealth comes from hours worked, you've capped your potential at the number of hours you can sell. And there are only 24 hours in a day. Robert Kiyosaki calls this the employee mindset. Machiavelli would call it voluntary servitude. You're not being forced to stay poor. You're being convinced that the path to wealth is through labor, and labor alone. But here's the truth. Wealthy people don't trade time for money. They trade leverage for money. They own systems. They own assets.
They own attention, distribution, capital, things that generate wealth whether they're working or sleeping. Meanwhile, you're taught that trading your finite hours is noble, responsible, the right way. That's the design. Here's how it plays out. You get a job. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You get a paycheck. It covers your expenses, barely. You want more money? Work more hours. Get a second job. Hustle harder. But you're still trapped in the same equation. Hours in, money out. And the ceiling is always there, because you only have so many hours. Meanwhile, the person who owns the company you work for, they're earning money from your hours and the hours of hundreds of other people. They've built a system that multiplies their time. You're trading time, they're trading leverage. Here's the application. Stop seeing income as something you earn per hour. Start seeing it as something you build per system. A system is anything that generates value independent of your direct time input. A business that runs without you. An asset that appreciates or generates income. Content that reaches people while you sleep. Code that solves problems at scale. Ownership in something that compounds. You don't escape poverty by working harder. You escape it by changing the game you're playing. From hours to systems. From labor to leverage. But here's the warning. The system doesn't want you to know this. Because the moment you stop trading time, you stop being controllable. You stop needing the job. You stop fearing the boss. You stop tolerating the terms. And that makes you dangerous. So they teach you early. Jobs are security. Entrepreneurship is risky. Playing it safe is smart. All of which keeps you in the cage. Comfortable, predictable, poor.
The second mechanism is that you've been taught that debt is normal. Student loans, car loans, credit cards, mortgages. The system has normalized borrowing money to fund a lifestyle you can't afford, with interest designed to keep you paying forever. And here's the genius of it. They make you feel like debt is empowerment. Invest in your education, build your credit, own your home. But what they're really saying is, give us your future income in exchange for present consumption. Debt isn't empowerment, it's a chain. And the interest you pay is the cost of staying chained. Machiavelli wrote, "Whoever believes that great advancement and new benefits make men forget old injuries is mistaken." But modern finance has inverted this. They've made you forget that debt is an injury by framing it as advancement. You borrow $100,000 for college. You spend the next 20 years paying it back with interest. That's 20 years of your income flowing to someone else before you even start building wealth for yourself. You buy a car on loan. You're paying interest on a depreciating asset. By the time you own it, it's worth half what you paid. You use credit cards for lifestyle. You're paying 18 to 25% interest on things that give you no return. every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar that could have compounded for you, but instead it's compounding for the lender. Here's the pattern. The system offers you easy access to money you don't have. You take it, thinking it's opportunity. Now you're locked into payments. Your income is spoken for before you even receive it. You can't take risks. You can't invest. You can't walk away from the job because you have debt to service. That's the trap. Here's the application. Flip the script. The wealthy don't borrow to consume. They borrow to invest, and only when the return exceeds the cost of the debt. But for you right now, the goal is simple. Eliminate consumer debt as fast as possible. Not because debt is evil, but because consumer debt is a chain that keeps you from building leverage. Every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar you're not investing in systems that generate wealth. Pay off the credit cards, pay off the car loans, get out from under the weight. Then, once you're free, you can use debt strategically to acquire assets that generate more than the debt costs. But until then, every payment is a piece of your freedom you're handing to someone else. Here's the warning. The system will fight you on this. They'll offer you 0% interest promotions, cash-back rewards, points and perks, all designed to keep you borrowing. Because the moment you're debt-free, you're mobile, you're dangerous. You can take risks they don't want you taking. So they keep the carrots dangling, keep the lifestyle accessible, keep you one payment away from freedom, but never quite getting there. Stay strong. Debt-free is the first step to power.
Design Mechanism 3. The Consumption Treadmill. Here's the third mechanism. You've been conditioned to consume, not accumulate. Every advertisement, every social media post, every cultural message is designed to make you spend money on things that lose value immediately. New phone, new car, new clothes, new experiences. And here's the trap. The more you earn, the more you spend. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's the reason people making $200,000 a year are just as broke as people making $50,000, because they've been trained to consume at the level of their income, never below it. Machiavelli observed that people are easier to control when they're focused on comfort and status rather than power and security. The consumption treadmill is exactly that, a distraction. You work to earn, you earn to spend, you spend to feel successful. Then you work more, to earn more, to spend more. The treadmill never stops, and you never accumulate wealth, because it's all going out as fast as it comes in. Here's how it works. You get a raise, you upgrade your apartment, you buy a nicer car, you eat at better restaurants. Your lifestyle expands to match your income, but your savings still the same, or worse. Now you have higher fixed costs, which means you're actually less free than before. You're making more, but you're not wealthier. You're just consuming at a higher level.
Meanwhile, the person who kept their lifestyle the same and invested the difference, they're building assets. They're accumulating leverage. They're compounding wealth. Here's the application. Break the link between income and consumption. When you get a raise, don't upgrade your life. Upgrade your investments. Keep living like you're making less than you are. Bank the difference. Invest it. Build systems with it. This isn't deprivation, it's strategy. Because every dollar you don't spend on consumption is a dollar that can work for you forever. The person who makes $100K and spends $95K is poorer than the person who makes $60K and spends $40K, because the latter is building wealth. The former is just servicing a lifestyle. Here's the formula. Earn, save, invest, repeat. Not earn, spend, earn more, spend more. That's the treadmill, and it leads nowhere. But here's the warning. The culture will punish you for this. They'll call you cheap. They'll question why you're not enjoying your success. They'll pressure you to keep up appearances. That's the system trying to pull you back in, because the moment you stop consuming, you stop feeding the machine. And the machine needs you consuming to keep the wealth flowing upward. Ignore them. Stay disciplined. Accumulate in silence.
Design Mechanism 4. The Financial Illiteracy by Design. Here's the fourth mechanism. You were never taught how money actually works. You spent 12+ years in school learning algebra, biology, history, but not one class on investing, compound interest, tax strategy, or wealth building. That's not an oversight, that's intentional. Because financially literate people are harder to control. They don't stay in jobs they hate. They don't take on bad debt. They don't consume mindlessly. They build wealth. They create options. They become independent. And independence is a threat to a system that requires dependence. Machiavelli wrote that the masses should be kept occupied and ignorant because awareness breeds rebellion. Financial illiteracy is modern occupation and ignorance. You're working, consuming, surviving, but never learning the rules of the game that would let you win. Here's the pattern. You're taught to get a job and save money in a bank account. But they don't teach you that inflation erodes the value of that savings faster than the interest accrues. You're told to invest in a 401k and wait until you're 65. But they don't teach you that the fees you're paying and the tax structure are designed to benefit the system, not you. You're encouraged to buy a house as an investment, but they don't teach you the true cost of ownership, the opportunity cost of locked capital, or how the mortgage is structured to pay mostly interest in the early years. You're kept ignorant of how taxes actually work and how the wealthy legally pay less, how to use leverage strategically, how compound interest works both for you and against you,
how to structure income to minimize tax burden. All of this is knowable, but it's not taught. Because if it were, you realize that the average person is playing a completely different financial game than the wealthy, and you'd stop playing by their rules. Here's the application. Educate yourself relentlessly, not through the mainstream channels. They're designed to keep you compliant, but through books, mentors, real investors, people who've actually built wealth. Learn about tax strategy, asset allocation, different investment vehicles, business structures, leverage and compounding, cash flow versus net worth. This isn't optional. This is survival. Because in a game where the rules are hidden, ignorance isn't bliss, it's poverty. Here's the warning. The moment you start learning, you'll realize how much you've been lied to. You'll feel angry, betrayed, resentful that no one taught you this earlier. That's normal. Channel it. Use that anger as fuel to never stop learning, to never trust the mainstream narrative about money again. Because they don't want you wealthy, they want you working. And the only way to break that is to know more than they think you should.
Design Mechanism 5. The Time Poverty Trap. Here's the fifth mechanism. You're kept so busy surviving that you never have time to strategize. You're working 40 to 60 hours a week, commuting, managing household tasks, dealing with immediate problems. By the time you get home, you're exhausted. You don't have the mental energy to learn about investing, start a side business, or plan your financial future. So you default to the easy option. Consume content, relax, repeat. And the cycle continues. This is time poverty, and it's as destructive as financial poverty because it's what keeps you from escaping financial poverty. Sun Tzu wrote, "Opportunities multiply as they are seized." But you can't seize opportunities if you don't have time to even see them. Here's how the trap works. You need money, so you work more hours. But working more hours depletes your energy and attention, which means you can't focus on building anything outside your job, which means your only source of income remains your job, which means you stay dependent, trapped, controllable. Meanwhile, wealthy people protect their time obsessively. They automate, they delegate, they eliminate, they say no to anything that doesn't move them toward leverage. Not because they're lazy, but because they understand that time is the only non-renewable resource. You can always make more money. You can't make more time. Here's the application. Audit your time ruthlessly. Track where your hours go for 1 week, every hour. Then ask, which of these activities are building leverage and which are just maintaining the status quo? Anything that's maintenance, routine tasks, low-value work, time spent on things that don't compound needs to be eliminated, automated, or delegated. Yes, even if you can't afford to delegate yet. Because the truth is, you can't afford not to. Every hour you spend on low-value tasks is an hour you're not spending on building the systems that will free you. Here's the brutal formula. If you're trading time for money, you're in the trap. If you're using time to build systems that generate income without your direct involvement, you're escaping it. Every hour should be invested in one of three things: learning skills that increase your leverage, building systems that generate income without your direct involvement, networking with people who can accelerate your path. Everything else is a distraction. Here's the warning: society will guilt you for this. They'll call you selfish for not spending time on things that matter. But here's the reality: you can't help anyone if you're drowning. You can't be generous if you're broke. You can't create impact if you're trapped. So protect your time like your life depends on it, because it does.
Design Mechanism 6. The Safety Myth. Here's the sixth mechanism. You've been taught to value security over opportunity. Play it safe. Don't take risks. Get a stable job with benefits. This sounds like wisdom, but it's a trap. Because safety is an illusion. And trading opportunity for the illusion of safety is how you stay poor. Let's be clear. There is no safety in employment. You can be fired. The company can go bankrupt. The industry can collapse. You're betting your entire financial life on one income stream controlled by someone else. That's not safety. That's fragility. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." I'd add, it is better to be free than safe if you cannot be both. Because safety is what they offer you in exchange for your freedom. A paycheck, benefits, the illusion of stability. But the cost? Your time, your potential, your autonomy. Here's the pattern. You choose the safe option, the stable job, the predictable path. It feels secure. You're not worried about next month's rent. But you're also not building wealth. You're not taking swings. You're not positioning yourself for exponential returns. You're treading water, comfortable, but going nowhere. Meanwhile, the person who took the risk, who started the business, made the investment, took the swing. They might fail, many do. But when they succeed, they win at a completely different level. Because risk and reward are correlated. The safer the choice, the lower the ceiling. Here's the application. Reframe risk. The riskiest thing you can do is put all your eggs in one basket controlled by someone else. The safest thing you can do is build multiple income streams, own assets, and develop skills that make you irreplaceable. That's true security. Not a job title, not a salary, but optionality. The ability to walk away, the ability to pivot, the ability to generate value regardless of external circumstances. Start small. You don't have to quit your job today. But start building, start learning, start creating something on the side that could become your primary source of income. Because the job is not the goal. The goal is freedom. And freedom comes from leverage, not safety. Here's the warning. People will discourage you. They'll tell you you're being irresponsible, that you should be grateful for what you have, that you're risking everything. They're projecting their fear onto you, because the thought of leaving the cage terrifies them, so they need you to stay in it with them. Ignore them. The only risk that matters is the risk of getting to the end of your life and realizing you played it too safe to ever be free.
Design Mechanism 7. The Scarcity Mindset Implant. Here's the 7th mechanism. You've been programmed to believe there's not enough. Not enough money. Not enough opportunity. Not enough success to go around. This is the scarcity mindset, and it's one of the most effective poverty locks ever created. Because when you believe resources are scarce, you operate from fear. You hoard instead of invest. You compete instead of collaborate. You play not to lose instead of playing to win, and that keeps you small. Machiavelli understood that leaders who operate from abundance attract resources. Leaders who operate from scarcity repel them. The same is true for wealth. When you believe money is scarce, you make decisions that keep it scarce. You don't invest because you might lose it. You don't start a business because you might fail. You don't ask for a raise because you might get rejected. You don't negotiate because you might lose the deal. Every decision is rooted in fear of loss. And fear of loss is the opposite of wealth building. Here's the truth. There is more than enough wealth in the world. The economy isn't a pie where someone else's slice reduces yours. Wealth is created, generated, multiplied. When someone gets rich, they didn't take that wealth from you, they created it. And you can too. Here's the application. Shift from scarcity to abundance. This isn't about positive thinking or manifestation nonsense. It's about recognizing that opportunities are abundant if you're willing to see them. That value can be created, not just redistributed. That someone else's success doesn't diminish your chances, it proves what's possible. Practically, when you see someone succeed, study them instead of resenting them. When an opportunity appears, evaluate it based on potential, not just risk. When you have money, invest a portion instead of hoarding all of it. You're training your brain to see possibilities instead of limitations. Here's the warning. The scarcity mindset is comfortable. It gives you an excuse. I would, but there's not enough. Abundance thinking is uncomfortable because now you're responsible. If opportunities are abundant, then your poverty is a choice. That's a hard truth, but it's also a liberating one. Because it means you have power. You just haven't been using it.
Design Mechanism 8. The Social Proof Prison. Here's the 8th mechanism. You've been conditioned to do what everyone else is doing. Your parents worked jobs. Your friends worked jobs. Society expects you to work a job. So you do. This is social proof, and it's one of the most powerful forces keeping you poor. Because when everyone around you is making the same financial decisions, those decisions feel safe, normal, correct, even when they're not. Robert Cialdini calls this the principle of consensus. We look to others to determine correct behavior. But here's the problem. Most people are poor. So if you're following what most people do, you're going to end up where most people end up, struggling. The math is simple. If you want different results, you need different behaviors. But different behaviors feel dangerous when everyone around you is doing the opposite. Here's the pattern. Everyone you know has a mortgage, a car payment, credit card debt. So those things feel normal, responsible, acceptable. Everyone you know trades time for money. So entrepreneurship feels risky, weird, unrealistic. Everyone you know spends their raises on lifestyle upgrades. So investing feels like something only rich people do. You're imprisoned by the consensus of mediocrity. Here's the application. Deliberately surround yourself with people who have the results you want. Not the people you grew up with, not the people who make you feel comfortable, the people who make you feel behind. Because that discomfort is growth. If you're the wealthiest person in your circle, you're in the wrong circle. You need to be around people who are building businesses, investing aggressively, thinking in decades, not paychecks. People who make you uncomfortable with your current level. That dissonance is what breaks the social proof prison. Find communities online, attend events, read books by people who've done what you want to do. Deliberately expose yourself to different norms. Because the moment you see that building wealth is normal for some people, it becomes possible for you. Here's the warning. Your current circle will resist this. They'll call you arrogant. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than them. They'll try to pull you back, not out of malice, but out of fear. Because your growth threatens their comfort. If you can escape, it means they could too, and they're not ready to face that. So they need you to stay, to validate their choices by making the same ones. Don't. Outgrow them, with love if possible, but outgrow them. Because you can't rise to the level of your goals if you're anchored to the level of your circle.
Design Mechanism 9, the retirement scam. Here's the 9th mechanism. You've been sold a lie about retirement. Work for 40 years, save in a 401k, retire at 65, live off your savings. This is the dream they sell you, and it's designed to keep you working until you're too old to enjoy freedom. Let's break this down. You trade the best years of your life, your health, your energy, your time for money you won't use until you're elderly. That's not freedom. That's delayed gratification taken to an absurd extreme. And here's the kicker. Most people won't even get there. The median retirement savings in America for people near retirement age, less than $200K. That's not enough to retire on. That's barely enough for a few years of basic living.
So after 40 years of sacrifice, most people end up working longer, living smaller, or depending on Social Security, a system that's already failing. Machiavelli would call this the long con. Make people sacrifice now for a promise that may never materialize. Here's the truth. Retirement is a scam designed to keep you producing for the system. Wealthy people don't retire at 65. They don't retire at all because they've built lives they don't need to retire from. They own systems that generate income. They work on projects they find meaningful. They have freedom now, not in 40 years. Here's the application. Stop optimizing for retirement. Start optimizing for freedom now. Build income streams that don't require your constant presence. Invest in assets that generate cash flow, not just appreciation. Design a life you don't need to escape from. The goal isn't to retire. The goal is to reach a point where work is optional, where you're doing things because you want to, not because you have to. That could happen at 30, at 40, at 50, or never if you're still trading time for money and hoping the 401k saves you. Here's the formula. Don't save for retirement. Build for freedom. Freedom means your expenses are covered by passive income. Your time is yours. Your choices are unlimited. That's the goal, not some mythical future where you're too old to do the things you actually want to do.
Design Mechanism 10. The final truth. You've been taught to be poor. Here's the culmination of everything. You weren't born poor. You were taught to be poor. Every belief, every behavior, every responsible choice you've been conditioned to make, it all serves the same function. Keep you producing, keep you consuming, keep you dependent. The system doesn't need you wealthy. It needs you working. It needs you in debt so you can't walk away. It needs you consuming so the money flows upward. It needs you focused on survival so you never build leverage. This isn't a conspiracy. It's just incentives. The people at the top benefit from your compliance, so they've built a system that makes compliance feel like wisdom. But here's the truth. Every rule you've been taught about money is designed to keep you in place. Get a job, work hard, save money, buy a house, invest in your 401k, retire at 65. All of it keeps you on the treadmill. Productive, predictable, powerless. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived." You've been deceived, not through lies, but through selective truth. They taught you how to be a good employee. They didn't teach you how to be wealthy. They taught you how to manage money. They didn't teach you how to multiply it. They taught you how to survive. They didn't teach you how to thrive. Here's the application. Unlearn everything. Every belief about money you inherited, question it. Every responsible choice you were taught, examine it. Every path that feels safe, scrutinize it.
because the beliefs that feel most true are often the ones that were planted deepest, and those are the ones keeping you trapped. Start from scratch. Rebuild your financial worldview based on results, not advice. Study people who've actually built wealth, not people who teach about it, people who've done it. Learn the real rules, the ones that work, the ones that scale, and then apply them ruthlessly. Here's the final warning. The moment you start breaking free, the system will try to pull you back. Through fear, through guilt, through social pressure. You're being reckless. You're abandoning your responsibilities. You're risking everything. That's the prison guards trying to keep you inside. Don't listen. Because the truth is, you've been riskier staying where you are than you ever would be trying to escape. You've been poor by design. Now it's time to be wealthy by choice.
They tell you poverty is about circumstance, that you're in the wrong place, the wrong economy, the wrong generation. But that's a lie designed to make you accept your position, because the truth is too dangerous for them to admit. You're poor because you've been psychologically engineered to stay that way. Every belief you hold about money, work, safety, and success, it was installed deliberately, systematically, not to hurt you, but to use you, to keep you producing value for a system that extracts it upward while giving you just enough to survive, but never enough to escape. And the brilliance of the design, you don't even see it. You think you're making free choices, responsible decisions, smart moves, when really you're following a script written long before you were born. A script designed to keep you working, consuming, borrowing, and hoping, but never building, owning, or compounding. But here's what they didn't count on. Some people wake up. Some people see the cage for what it is. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing the patterns, the incentives, the mechanisms of control disguised as wisdom. And you realize this isn't random. This isn't bad luck. This is architecture. And architecture can be escaped. Not easily, not quickly, but definitively. You escape by rejecting the script, by refusing to trade your life for a paycheck, by eliminating the debt that chains you, by building systems instead of working hours, by educating yourself in the rules they never taught you, by protecting your time like it's the only non-renewable resource, because it is, by choosing freedom over safety, by thinking abundance instead of scarcity, by surrounding yourself with people who've broken free instead of people who've accepted the cage, by retiring the concept of retirement and building freedom now. One mechanism at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time, until the cage no longer holds you. This isn't a motivational speech. This isn't a promise that it'll be easy. This is a tactical briefing on the war you're in, whether you realize it or not. A war for your time, your energy, your potential. And the enemy, it's not evil. It's not malicious. It's just indifferent. The system doesn't care if you thrive or struggle. It only cares that you keep producing. So here's the choice. You can keep playing by their rules, keep believing their narratives, keep hoping that hard work and responsibility will somehow lead to wealth, despite all evidence to the contrary. Or you can see the design for what it is and dismantle it, piece by piece, belief by belief, choice by choice, until you're no longer poor by design, but wealthy by strategy. The cage is open. Most people will never notice, but you're not most people. You're the one who saw it. Now walk out